Hello everyone, I'm Alicia. Last summer I bought 5 pairs of flip-flops on sale for $1 each, and I wanted to bead them, but before I did, I wanted to wear them and see what they were like. And they were terrible. They only lasted 2 weeks, so I never beaded them because they were junk. So a few days ago, I went to Walmart and I found these flip-flops for $10, and after I bought them, I realized they were perfect for beading on, and they are good quality and they're really comfortable, and I like the holes here on the strap. It's kind of like a template, which makes beading on these very easy to do, especially for people that really haven't even done beading before. Now I know that not everyone will be able to get these flip-flops, and if you can't find the same ones I have, you can use another pair of flip-flops. As long as they have fabric on the top that can be pierced by a needle, you can use them. You can make the same pattern on yours that I have on mine with a marker or a pencil, and you can use a ruler to make consistent patterns. Now keep in mind the size of the beads you are using when making your pattern, and if you want, you can make your own pattern, and you can use larger beads if you want, if you make your pattern longer than mine here. Just so you guys know, I measured the distance between these large holes here on my flip-flop, and there are 10 millimeters between each of these larger holes. Now if you're using a marker to make your pattern on another flip-flop that has fabric on it but not these holes, you want to make these dots first that are 10 millimeters apart, and then once you have all of those on with a marker or whatever you're using, you want to take and make 2 dots in between the larger ones. So 2 here, 2 there, 2 there, as you can see here on my flip-flop. And once you have your pattern on the top of your flip-flop with a marker, whatever you're using to make your pattern, then you're ready to bead them. Here is the list of materials you will need to make beaded flip-flops. You will need 3.5 feet of 8-pound fireline, or 10-pound. And if you don't have fireline, you can use monofilament, but you will have to use a big eye needle because monofilament is too thick to fit through regular needles. I'm also using size 10 Beadazzled beading needles, and I'm using a ruler. I'm also using 6mm round beads, and I have a total of 68 in my pair of flip-flops. Now you may need more or less. It depends on if you're using the same flip-flops I am. It might depend on what size you're wearing, or even if you're doing flip-flops that aren't the same as mine but they're fabric on top, you might need more or less. So 68, I'm just giving you, that's the amount that I'm using, so you might need that around that number, okay? You're also going to need seed beads, and I like to use 8/0 seed beads on my flip-flops because the 8/0s are bigger and they stand out more than the 11/0s. And by the way, I am using junky seed beads. These are not the greatest brand, but they work. You don't have to use expensive seed beads for this project, which is great. You're also going to need flip-flops, and like I said, I got mine from Walmart. They are the OP name brand. And this is it. Remember, I always put the material list down there in the description bar so you can see everything you need, along with my Facebook link and other things that you're going to need to know about this video. I went ahead and I threaded my beading needle onto 3.5 feet of fireline, and now I'm ready to start beading my flip-flop. And I'm going to start beading down here, and I'm going to do the 6mm beads first, and I'm going to go all the way up to the top with the 6mm, and then I'm going to come back through and embellish it with the 8/0 seed beads. And if you want, you can use 11/0 seed beads. You don't have to use 8, but keep in mind, if you're using monofilament and a needle, you can't pass the needle with monofilament on it through 11/0s. So that's something you have to think about. Okay, so I actually have 2 pieces of material here. I have this leather looking material, and then on the other side I have this pink material. Now if you want, you can puncture the pink material, but since I have this black here and it already has holes in it, I'm just going to work on the black like I did on this side, and you can't see my thread on the back. Now, if you are using a different flip-flop that has fabric on it that is not the same as I'm using, you will have to puncture the flip-flop and come out the back and then, you know, come back up through the top. But since this has two materials, I'm not going to puncture it. Okay, now it will be hard to take our needle and pass through here without catching the other material on the other side, the pink material. So what I do is I just take something. I have a little crochet hook here. It's a really tiny one. And I just push the pink material away and I lift up the black. And I just like to go through it like this. And I squeeze it here just to separate them. Also do it down here because this is where I'm going to start at. This just helps me from grabbing the other material. Now, you can use something else. If you don't have a crochet hook, you could probably use a pokey tool, but of course you don't want to poke the material on the other side, okay? So I'm first going to start by taking my needle and I'm going to pass through this hole and come out the bottom hole. And you'll see why in a bit because of the stitch I'm going to be doing. So passing through here, just like this, pull it through, don't pull it through all the way. Now I want to leave an 8-inch tail on this, and when I was first doing this I wasn't measuring my tail, but after doing one complete flip-flop and then half of another, I realized that I should measure my tail so at the end when I go to tie knots, both of my tails are even and I could tie knots with two tails at the same time, and you'll see when I go do that part. Okay, so I have my tail here sticking out, and I'm going to pick up 2 of my 6mm beads, and then I'll come back and measure it. Okay, so I have 2 here and I like to slide them down. Okay, so now I have it looks like this, and again I'm going to take my needle and I'm going to pass through this same hole that I'm exiting out of, and I'm wrapping my beads around the top here. Okay, so go through there and try not to puncture my other material, just like this, and pull the beads down. Don't pull it too tight. Now I'm going to take my ruler and I'm going to measure this thread, and I want to get it 8 inches long, and right now it is very close to 8. It's actually 7 3/4. So just fix that there. Okay, now it's 8 inches long. Okay, I'm going to leave this like this. I'm not going to tie this tail off to the very end because I like to tie my tails to each other. So I'm going to take my needle now and I'm going to pass back through these 2 beads. So my working tail's coming out this hole, so I'm going to bend this strap down and pass through these 2 beads just like this and pull the needle through. Okay, now I'm just going to pull this snug so it's sitting properly on top of my sandal. Okay, just move your tail there off to the side, and I'm going to pick up 2 more 6mm beads, and because they're not on my bead mat, it's a little trickier to pick them up. Okay, so I got 2. I'm going to slide these down just like that. Now this time my thread's exiting out here. I'm going to take my needle and I'm going to pass through this hole and come out this hole. Okay, and I'm able to do that because I pushed my fabrics away from each other. So just like that. Now if you were doing a different flip-flop that was all fabric with no holes and you just have marking a pattern on top, you would go straight down through the material and then you would come back up through the next mark that you made. Okay, so pull this through, and I accidentally went through my loop there and I don't want to do that, and pull that down. Okay, so now I have this. So now I'm going to take the needle and I'm going to pass back through these 2 beads. Okay, just like that, and I'll zoom in a little bit there so you can see what I'm doing. Pulling this through, and it looks like I cut my tail So I'm just going to grab that out with my needle. Right here it is. Okay, pull that out. Now I want to pull this thread and pull these beads down, and you do want to pull it tight this time. Pull it very tight. And you can go back and pull your other tail tight as well. Okay, so now I have 4 beads attached. So if you made this distance here, if you're doing another pair like I said, wider, you could do 8mm beads. So there's 10mm between here. If you did maybe 14 or 16mm apart, you could do 2 8mm beads instead of 6. Okay, so exiting out of here, I'm going to pick up 2 6mm beads again and slide those down. And I'm probably going to have to use this here again to push this away. Okay, I'm going to pass my needle through this hole right here, and I'm going to come out this hole. Okay, just like that, and bring these beads down. Again, I'm going to take my needle and I'm going to sew back through them again, just these 2, just like this, and pull it through. And again, hold it like this and pull it tight. Okay? You don't want to have gaps in between. Okay, now I'm going to do it again. I'm going to take my needle and I'm going to pick up 2 more beads, and I'm going to do it by hand now because I don't have my bead mat. Okay? And again, you're going to want to pass in this hole and come out the next hole. Okay, so just like that. Pass through here. Bring it down. And it looks like this. Take the needle, pass through the same 2 beads again. And pull it down. Pull it tight. And you know, there's probably a name for this stitch, but I wouldn't know it because I don't sew. But I've taken some junky shoes apart that I found before, and also purses that were damaged from thrift stores, and they had a similar stitch to this. Okay, so I just added those 2 beads there. I'm exiting it here. I picked up 2 more, and again, I'm skipping over this hole and I'm going to go through the next one. Okay? And I have to push the material away from each other again so I can pass through. Oops. Bring those 2 beads down, and then I'm going to pass through them again. So this is very simple. We're going to be repeating these same steps over and over, and actually I was surprised at how fast I made these flip-flops. The other one I made yesterday pretty quickly. Okay, so I just had 2 more beads, slide those down, and you could see that I now have to pass through this hole. So I think it might be better if I turn my shoe around like this, separate my material. There we go, much better. Okay, pass through here, and then pass through these 2 beads again. Okay, pull the thread through and pull it tight. And I like to push them this way in the direction of all my other beads and pull the thread tight so we don't have any gaps. Okay, again, I'm going to pick up 2 more beads, slide them down, and again I'm going to go through this hole and come out this hole. Now if you already get what I'm doing, you can fast forward the video if you want, but I'm just going to finish this up because there's not much left. Okay, so pulling those down, I'm now going to pass through them. Just like that, and pull it tight. Okay, picking up 2 beads again, sliding these down, passing through here, bringing it down, and now I have to sew through these 2 beads again. And pull this tight. So pull this down and pull your thread tight. And this is what we've done so far. And this is actually pretty just by itself. If you wanted, you don't have to add the seed bead. You could leave it just like this, but I just love the look of the seed bead, so I'm going to add them. Okay, I have 2 more beads left to add. Pick them up and slide them down. Again, I'm going to pass through this hole and come out that one. And then I'm going to sew back through these 2 again. And pull it tight. So now we have the top of our shoe done. So now I'm going to embellish the top with the seed beads, and this is so much fun. I really love making these flip-flops. I wish I bought a second pair, I really did. So now I'm going to decorate the top, and to get in position, I'm going to go down this big hole here, I'm exiting right here, and I'm going to come up through this little hole, okay? So again, I want to make sure that the fabric is separated, and I'm going to take my needle, pass through this hole here, the large one, and then come out the smaller one, and pull that through. And pull it tight, okay? Now I'm going to pick up 6 8/0 seed beads, and I'm going to wrap it around the top here. If you're using 11/0 seed beads, you might need to do 8 or 9 seed beads to accommodate the amount that I'm using here. So you'll need more because they're smaller. Okay, so I'm going to pick up a total of 6. I get 3, 4, 5, and 6. Just like that. Slide them down. I'm exiting out of this hole. I'm going to squeeze my shoe here because it separates my material. I'm going to go down through this little hole, and I'm going to come up through the next hole, which is all the way over here. Okay? Which is kind of far away. I'm going to give you a close-up once I get through it. Okay, so I'm exiting out of this one, the small hole here. I'm going through this hole, and I'm coming out this hole over here. So I'm going at an angle, like that. So you can see my other hole is right across from it, the little hole there. Now I'm going to pull this through, and I'm going to make sure that it lays on top of my beads, like that. It's just a little ring of seed beads that's laying on top of those, and it looks so cute. I really like it. Okay, now I'm going to do it again. I'm going to pick up a total of 6, and I probably should have got my bead mat out for this. 3, 4, 5, 6, and it probably would help if I wore my glasses today. Okay, I got a total of 6. I'm coming out this hole, I'm going to go in through this one, and I'm going to come out over here. So I'm going at an angle. So again, I'm going to squeeze this and make sure it's separated. I'll use this to push it down. Coming out here, I'm going to go in through here, and I'm going to come out right here. Now again, if you were doing a different shoe, you would have to pierce it going down here, and if you marked it like I said with a marker, you would have to come up through the next dot that you made there. Okay, I'm going to pull this through and make sure that that strand of seed beads sits on there properly, and I'm going to pull this tight, and now I have 2 bands of seed beads made. Okay, I'm going to pick up 6 seed beads again. I got 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Slide those down. I'm exiting out here, so I have to go through this side. I have to go straight across. Then I'm going to come out through that hole over there. So I squeeze this, and try not to puncture holes in it because I don't have to. Come out the big hole there, okay? So in through that hole, straight across through that little hole on the other side, and pull this through. Make sure that your seed beads are sitting properly, just like that, and pull it tight. And I'm going to turn this around so I can properly tighten it, okay? Now I'm going to pick up 6 more seed beads again. So this is very simple. We're just repeating these steps over and over. I got 5. Here is 7. Slide those down. Okay, I'm going to flip this over again. I'm going to squeeze my shoe. I'm passing through this bottom hole that's straight across from here, and I'm going through at an angle, and I have to come out this hole over there. So straight across. I'm going to pull this through. Make sure I don't get snagged in anything. Just like that, okay? Make sure you pull this tight every time, because if you don't, these beads back here can loosen up, and it makes it hard to tighten them up if this is already tight. Now, if you do have some of these loose back here, what you could do is grab the seed beads with your nails, pull it like this, then pull the next row, then pull the next row, and then pull this row, and then pull this tight, and all of them will be tight at the same time. Okay, so I'm going to do it again. I'm going to pick up my 6 seed beads, and like I said, if you're using 11, you'll probably have to do 8 or 9. Okay. Again, I'm exiting out here. I'm going to squeeze this so it separates the material. I'm going into the bottom hole, and I'm coming out this hole over here. Carefully don't grab those threads there. Okay, and I'm just going to pull this down, and now we have this. So we're already halfway through this strap, so you could see how fast this works up. And you know what? I think this same weave that I'm doing would work on a headband. Remember in the past I've made headbands? I think the same weave would work for headbands. And with something else I want to mention, I said earlier how I took purses apart that were done with this similar weave. Well, when I took those apart, they were all done with seed beads. They would pick up like 3 seed beads at a time, slide them down, and they would do the same weave that I did here with these pink beads. So I was thinking, if you don't have 6mm beads, because I know that a lot of you have a hard time finding materials where you live, you can use like 6 seed beads, and you would probably do 3 or 4 in between, and you would do the same weave that I did with the pink one. So that's just another thought that I had. Okay, so I have my 6 seed beads on. I'm squeezing this again. I'm passing through the hole that's straight across from that, and I'm going to go through at an angle and pass through this little hole over here, which is starting to get tricky. because I'm getting to this side, and over here it's a little tricky to pass through because of how it is on the side of the shoe there. Okay, so I'll pull that tight, and I now have this. Okay, so I just have 1, 2, 3 more rings to do. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 seed beads. Slide those down. And again, if you want, you can fast forward this if you get what I'm doing. Okay, I just went through that hole that's straight across from where I'm exiting, and I'm coming out over here on that hole. I'm going to pull this through, and I'll show you what it looks like from this side of the shoe. It looks really nice. Okay, I have my tail there. I have to be careful I don't catch that. Again, I'm going to pick up 6 more seed beads. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, slide those down. I'm exiting right here. So again, I'm going to squeeze this. I'm going to go in this hole that's across from where I'm exiting. Then I'm going to go at an angle and pass through the next hole over here, just like that. Pull that through, and I need to slide my needle down my thread. It's getting close. Gotta be careful my tail doesn't get caught up in what I'm doing. Okay, just have 1 more ring of seed beads to add. So I have to pick up 6 again. 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Just like that. Slide them down. I'm exiting out here, and I need to go in there. So, oh, and I'm at the end now. So I'm exiting out that side. I need to go through here, but I'm going to exit out this large hole where my pink beads are coming out of, okay? So I might have to use my little tool to get me through. Okay, I did it. So just like that, through the little one, coming out the large hole, pull this through. I want my beads to sit right there. And now I'm going to pull this tight, and I'm going to go back. I'm going to take my other thread, my other tail, and I'm going to pull that tight. Now you might want to check your work before we tie it off. I like to always go back and check it, because there's been a lot of times where I didn't go back and check it and a seed bead broke and I didn't know it, or I skipped a seed bead. I added an extra one, and I really hate it when I screw up and I tie knots, because then I have to cut it apart and go back and fix it. And if you catch it before you tie the knots, you could just pull it out and you don't have to cut the thread or monofilament, which is great. So go back and check your work. Make sure you have 6 seed beads in each ring, and then count your pink beads, or not your pink beads, your 6mm beads, and make sure they look like this. And then I'm going to show you how to tie your knots when you're ready. So tying the knots in this is so easy. It's just unbelievable. Okay, so what I'm going to do is take the needle. I'm exiting out right here on the side. My other tail is over here between these. I'm going to take my needle and I'm going to meet it up to this thread. So I have to pass through these 2 pink 6mm beads. Okay, so just like that, I'm passing through those 2. Okay, now before I tie my knots, I want to make sure that both of these threads are pulled tight. So I'm going to pull this one tight, hold these beads in place, pull this one tight, just go back and forth, make sure it's tight. And now what I'm going to do is tie my knot, and I'm going to tie a 1/2 hitch knot. I'm going to go over and under like that, bring it down, pull that tight. I'm going to go over and under twice, okay, and pull that down. And if you want, you could do it again. Over and under, pull it down, again over and under twice, and pull that down. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to pass both of my tails through this needle, and I'm going to have it double stranded, and I'm going to pass through all of my pink beads tying knots. Now sometimes, I'm going to take this off. Sometimes I have a lot of comments that people tell me that they can't thread their needles. Well, what I always do when I thread my needle, and by the way, I always use Beadazzled needles. They are my favorite because they bend. I've used John James needles, and every time I use them, they won't bend. They always break in half, and it drives me crazy. But I've never had a Beadazzled needle split in half like I have them. So what I do before I thread my needle is I take the fireline and I flatten it with my fingers just like this, okay, because the thread is round. Now I'm going to do this to both ends, make sure it's flat. Now sometimes I have had a needle where I couldn't thread it. No matter what I tried flattening my thread, I've used 6 pound, I could not get through it. So what I've done, and this is a little trick, I've never seen anybody else do this, I took a pocket knife. This is a very old pocket knife I've had forever. It is so dull, it won't even cut through a marshmallow. And what I do is I take the tip of it, I lay the needle down, and I would have to zoom in to show you guys. I lay the needle down, and I just take the tip of the pocket knife, and I put it in the needle here, where you put your thread through, and I go like this, and I make the opening bigger. And then I could pass my thread through very easily. So if you have needles like that where you can't thread them, try doing that with the knife. Just use a dull one so you don't cut yourself. Okay, now I'm going to thread my needles. I'm going to put on one thread at a time. I got one there. I'm going to slide this thread over to the side like that. And then I'm going to thread my second one. And I always put my thread between my fingers like this where you can't see it. Then I carefully bring it down over my needle and I pass it through. Okay, now I'm going to pass both of these through my needle. I need to make sure that they're straight. Okay, and if I have a lot of excess left, which I don't have that much, I'm just going to cut the excess off the other side. Make sure they are even. It's a bad cut there. Okay. And now I have 2 threads going through one needle. Okay, now I'm going to tie my knots. Now if you look at your flip-flop from the side, there is a single thread that's right here in between the pink beads. I'm going to tie my knots here. And I was just going to do like 2 or 3 knots here at the beginning, but then I realized that, you know, just like other things I've made, I should go all the way to the end if I have enough thread because it makes it stronger. So that's why I tell you at the beginning to leave an 8-inch tail because it'll get us all the way to the beginning. So right here I'm going to take this needle, I'm going to pass under these pink beads right here, and I'm going to catch that thread. I'm making a loop and I'm passing through this 1 or 2 times. I did 2, but I was worried that I was going to mess it up because it was a lot of threads. These here are moving on me. Straighten that out. Okay, now I'm going to pull this knot down. Make sure my tails are even. Okay, now I'm going to pull this tight. Okay, now I'm going to pass through my next 2 6mm beads. Bend it if you have to, pass through them. I try to go through 2 at one time. If you can't, you'll have to go through 1 and come back through the second. Okay, make sure you don't catch on anything, pull that through. I'm going to tie another knot here. I'm going to grab that 1 thread, make a loop, and go through it again, pull it down, again pass through the 2 beads, come out and tie another knot. I'll do it one more time. Through here, make a loop, and go through it one time and bring it down. And then pass through the next 2 beads. Just like that. So I just keep going and I use up my thread. I'll come all the way out here and I'll trim it very close so you can't see it. And we're done. So this is very easy to do, and I think anybody could do this. So in my next video, I'm going to show you guys how to bead a different style of flip-flop, and the next flip-flop I'm going to work on is a more commonly worn style of flip-flop that's everywhere. So if for some reason you guys can't do this one, if you can't find flip-flops that have a fabric top like I have here, you're probably going to be able to do my next video tutorial, because it's a style of flip-flop that everybody has, every store has that kind of flip-flop. So please like this video, leave me a comment, subscribe if you want to see more of my videos, and like me on Facebook, and show me pictures of the jewelry we've made from my videos on my Facebook page, and follow me on Pinterest. Thanks for watching!